Good evening, everyone. How's it going? Welcome to the Boardmen Don't Get Paid podcast. We're here today to discuss Week 2 NFL DFS and some gambling picks. I'm joined today by my co-hosts, Mr. Lawrence Su and Mr. Yash Varma, and we're going to get things going right away. So, Mr. Su, what are you looking forward to for DFS this week?
Per usual, we're going to break down some of our cash picks and then go straight into GPPs and talk about our lineup construction. So this week in cash games, I think it seems pretty straightforward. A lot of the Raiders prices the prices came out before Sunday's
Monday's game.
Monday night's game. Yeah, so a lot of the Raiders are still very underpriced per their production. So I'm pointing out, I think in cash games you need at least two of the three cheap Raiders in Tyrell Williams, Josh Jacobs, or Darren Waller. And because you're paying down on one of those Raiders, I think you can definitely pay up at either QB or tight end. So somebody like Mahomes or Kelsey can be very valuable in cash games if you want to run it back with them. And I think that's kind of how you start your lineup construction in cash games, at least how I'm probably going to do it this week.
Absolutely.
And I think for a high-priced running back, you go for somebody like Alvin Kamara, who's the cheapest of the high-priced running backs in a really great game environment against the Rams.
CMC just dropped a 40 burger on them last week, so
Exactly.
that's a tempting play.
Yep. And then defense, I think you pretty much just go with the Patriots. You saw what happened to the Dolphins last week. That was they're actively tanking, and they scored. I mean, Ravens put up 12 points on them without really doing much that game.
Yeah.
They were kind of just playing prevent defense the whole second half.
Yeah.
And and Patriots.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, you like that I'm talking about the Patriots because you spent $41 in fab money to bid on them in one
We're
of
here
our
to
fantasy
talk
leagues.
about DFS and not money management and season long. But yes, I did spend
proud of it.
an absurd amount on the Patriots defense because I'm a believer. And if you look at their schedule for the next 6 weeks, it's amazing. But let's
$41 though, $41. Don't do that when you're playing fantasy, guys.
fab dollars are a facade. I'm just gonna say it again.
All right. Well, who else is on your who in your lineup for cash games this week or on your radar?
I think you pretty much just said my core. I think we're kind of in agreement this week. I think another player that you didn't mention that I think is looking like a safe option is probably Keenan Allen, with news of Hunter Henry just getting an injury and Mike Williams potentially being on the shelf. I think Keenan Allen looks like a lock for a high amount of production.
I think we had a tapioca take about Mike Williams earlier. Seemed a little egregious. How's that looking?
It's looking good for me, but for my colleague, Mr. Varma, not looking so good.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of time.
Any last words for your Mike Williams tapioca take before it all goes to crap?
Well, it all goes to tapioca in my belly, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's what we kind of have for our cash game lineups. I think if you pay for all the cheap guys, you can definitely pay up at a few positions. I think you might be able to afford one more expensive wide receiver too. And
what's another wide receiver? Just a quick one that you think is a good cash option.
I mean, I think both Juju and Juju and Mike Thomas are both in good situations. That Seahawks secondary got torched by Cincinnati last week, and Michael Thomas is. I think they're underdogs to the Rams. So lots of possession plays, lots of getting that one PPR. In DraftKings, it's going to add up against the Rams. Yeah.
Agreed.
So those are the high price guys that I like.
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily we're not playing each other in our private DraftKings league because we would probably have a very similar lineup based on this discussion. So I'm in agreement with most of these plays.
Yeah. Moving on. So now we're talking about GPPs, which is kind of what we're what this whole podcast is going to all be about. So yes, who's primarily a GPP player. Why don't we start off talking about which running backs are on your radar for GPPs this week? Sorry, quarterbacks.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people are going to be gravitating towards Lamar Jackson as
As they should. He's still cheap. They didn't price him up that much.
yeah, he's only at 6,700. He is the second most expensive quarterback. He's $100 more expensive than Deshaun Watson and 200 more than Rodgers. Uh, I can see why people would take him. I think, he's going to be a very chalky play. But I would probably pivot off of him. I would actually, I'm looking at Dak Prescott at 6,300. He's playing against Washington. Philadelphia and Washington just went into a kind of like a shootout last week, so Prescott can definitely put some points on the board. Looking at, I think my favorite play actually is Josh Allen, and he's going to be my Lamar Jackson of this week, what Lamar was last week. He's only at 5,300. He's playing against the Giants, the same team that Prescott lit up, and he just has a very high ceiling. And at that price tag, like I feel like you can't, do better. There's you have Dalton, who's $100 more expensive than him. You have Kyler Murray, Trubisky. I don't know why. That's a little strange. Roethlisberger, Goff, Garoppolo, like they're all priced up higher than Josh Allen, and I feel like Josh Allen has a higher ceiling than all of those guys. So he's my main GPP player of this week at the quarterback position. Looking at it, I see Derek Carr at 5,100. We all saw what he did against Denver, who was supposed to have a good defense, and he kind of shredded them. So, and against Kansas City, that's going to be a high octane game. If you're going to be betting on that game, definitely take the over. I could see Carr putting up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, maybe even more. So he's definitely in play as well. So
I agree with you on Carr, Raider bias aside.
I like Carr as well for GPPs at only 5,100 and one of the highest scoring projected over-unders. I think you can definitely play Carr in GPPs.
Chalky, likely, but I think he's at a point where even if he fizzles, he probably won't kill you. So it's a good spot for him.
Yeah, so you can definitely pivot off some of the higher priced players and definitely go down to Derek Carr.
I may not take this guy in my main GPP, but in like a cheaper GPP, I'm really thinking about taking Tom Brady. I think there's a chance this could get really, really ugly in the first half, and I'm actually I'm probably gonna stack him with Antonio Brown in like a really cheap lineup
He's not playing, is he?
I think he is gonna play. If he's ruled in, I'm gonna do it. I think he's actually playing week 2. But yeah, I wouldn't advise this if this was like your main GPP. But if it's like a dollar entry or something like that.
The thing is, honestly, I have no problem playing Tom Brady as well. Like, I think he's an excellent play. I think it's so easy for him to just go over the top of that Miami defense. I mean, it's not like he has a shortage of receivers. You saw him carve up that Steelers secondary with Philip Dorsett of all people last week, and get Edelman more involved, get Josh Gordon involved. Like, I think it's 18.5 favorites. Like, someone's going to score. Their implied team total is 33.5 points.
He could have 400 yards in the first half.
Yeah, I think he's a great GPP play as well. Yeah. And for me, you guys already kind of talked about a lot of GPP plays that I'm looking at in Derek Carr and Josh Allen. I think those two are great GPP plays. I'm going to add in one more. And the thing for me to say this guy, like, I'm not a believer in him, but as a quarterback, I think the Rams overpaid for him this offseason. But I think Jared Goff at 5,900 is in a great game environment against the Saints. We saw Deshaun Watson, carve up the Saints over on Sunday Night Football? I'm already confused. Was it Sunday night? Yeah.
Monday, it was the first Monday night game. There was a doubleheader.
Yes, Monday night game.
Yeah.
And, Jared Goff is historically better at home than he is on the road. So a lot of recency bias might be in place, seeing as he only scored 10.5 DK points last week in that Rams victory against the Panthers. In this environment, they're only favored by 2.5, and they have a 28 projected implied team total. So I think you can go with Goff and GPPs because he's shown in the past that he has that ceiling.
And I like that. Are we done with quarterback?
Yeah.
I'm actually in GPPs. I'm actually going to take Todd Gurley this week. I think, like you talked about, recency bias and the perception. I think he's going to be very low owned. And just because Malcolm Brown got those touchdowns, don't let it distort what Todd Gurley actually did. He was on the field for the majority of that game, and his statistics were still really good. He just didn't get the touchdowns. I think Todd Gurley is going to have a massive game this week.
He can have a massive game, but is he worth that price? Would you say? I think last week he had a decent game, but he still only scored 10 or 11 DK points. I guess his price did go down 7,000.
He was a few yards off. I think he was 3 yards off the 3-point bonus, which, obviously that hurts a little bit. I think he's in a great spot to get maybe two touchdowns this week. I think those touchdowns that went to Brown won't go to Brown this week. And I think Gurley's in a really nice spot.
I'm gonna fade Gurley this week. I whatever the Rams say, I think they're trying to preserve him throughout the entire season. There's no point in running him 20-25 times a game. Their division is, they should be able to win their division. I don't think they're going to, he's on a big contract, and you don't want to run him down. If I were to pick a running back at that same price, James Conner is in a great position. He's only $200 less, and I feel like David Johnson is going to be a very low-owned pick. That Baltimore rush, they're gonna hound that Arizona O-line, and I feel like Kyler Murray is gonna lean back on Johnson a lot and get a lot of those screen passes and dump offs. And in a PPR scoring system where you get 1 point per reception, I think that's gonna add up real quick. I don't know.
I think Lawrence already mentioned Alvin Kamara in cash. I think he's a viable option in both formats. I think he's probably going to be the most owned stud among the elite tier, but it seems like his floor is going to be really high. So I can understand if anyone wants to go that way.
Yeah, so you guys both were talking about those, high 6,000, low 7,000 running backs, and I feel like this week, especially in GPPs, they're in kind of like a no man's land. I feel like no one's going to really roster those that range of running backs. I feel like Josh Jacobs is so cheap, but you kind of have to roster him at only 4,700 because the Raiders showed, that he's basically a 3-down back for them. So even if they get behind, they're still going to lean on him. You're the Raiders fan here. Do you think that if they get behind, they're going to start playing Jalen Richard, or do you think it's a Josh Jacobs show?
I agree with you. I mean, I'm probably going to take him in GPPs as well, just because, like you said, his price is extremely low. I think I'm kind of basing it off of how I performed last week, and I did take quite a bit of chalk, so I want to kind of game theory it a little bit this week. But no, I think Josh Jacobs, regardless of the game script, he's going to be in play. He's not like Marshawn Lynch, where they would definitely take him off the field for Jalen Richard. I think Josh Jacobs is a 3-down back. Jalen Richard will probably get a couple more snaps, but I think it's a virtual certainty that Jacobs is going to at least X3.
Yeah, so talking about game theory, I got 2 running backs that I really like at their price, who's very much similar to Josh Jacobs' price. First off, I really like Duke Johnson this week. I think Duke is in a great spot against Jacksonville. I think Houston is favored in the game, but I think that Jacksonville run defense, the Jacksonville defense is still going to be good, and that Houston O-line is still not very good. You saw Watson take so many sacks against the Saints. I think he was most effective, I guess, tossing it off to Duke on those short passes. I don't know how effective Carlos Hyde is going to be against Jacksonville, and I think Duke at 5,000 is in a great spot, especially because he can rack up those PPR points really, really quickly. And the other low-priced running back around that range that I really like too is Matt Breida for the Niners. Matt Breida is going to take advantage of Tevin Coleman's injury, and last year when he had the chance, when he took over that feature back role, he was injury prone, but when he was on the field, he put up great numbers, and I think he's going to get the chance to put up those great numbers against a Cincinnati defense that just got carved up by Chris Carson.
Fair. Are you worried about them giving the rock to Raheem as well, though, or that?
I think that's something that is a little bit worrisome, but I still project maybe like a 60-40 split, 65-35 split for Breida. And Breida has shown he's a capable pass catcher in the past too. So I think Breida at only 5,200 could be a great GPP play, especially because right now it seems like Coleman's going to be out, and Coleman is out for sure. And Cincinnati's run defense just really isn't very good.
Fair. And I'll add another running back in the cheap tier. I think Devin Singletary is in a really good spot this week at 4,200. He didn't even touch the rock until the third quarter, and like middle of the third quarter, and he still ended up with 15 fantasy points basically. If he gets a full workload, I think he's in a really good spot to far exceed value.
And then one last little game theory thing I want to talk about. I like Devin Singletary at 4,200. I think if you can project that he's going to get the carries, I think that's a great price for him, and he's going to come in at low ownership as well, I believe. But for GPPs this week, I think far and away, Alvin Kamara is probably going to be the highest owned.
Yep.
And I also just want to point out that I think Saquon and Ezekiel Elliott are both in pretty decent spots as well. Dallas going into Washington as a huge favorite. I know Zeke kind of took the fourth quarter off because they had a huge lead, but with 1 week under his belt and more conditioning, I think he can be a great pivot off of Kamara. And I think Saquon last week was probably the worst game script you could probably have for the Giants, and Saquon still put up 21 fantasy points without scoring a touchdown. Like his ceiling is the highest of all these running backs. And yeah, they're going to Buffalo, Buffalo's coming to them, who they have a great defense, but Le'Veon Bell carved up Buffalo's defense last week, and if Le'Veon Bell can do it, I think Saquon can do it as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Le'Veon had a little help from his boy Jamison Crowder, but
Yeah. Any more guys you want to add for GPP plays for running backs, Yash?
There's one more. I'm going with Derrick Henry. He's actually going to be my second running back in my roster. We saw what Eckler did to Tennessee, even though a lot of that was in the passing game, but I think Henry's 75-yard touchdown reception last game, his weakness was being a passing back, and that's why they had Deion Lewis. But I think that's going to change going forward, and he's going to be featured in the passing game a lot more. Dude's just a big body; he can just run you over. So
I like it. I think you can get Henry at super low owned this week for sure at that price.
Yeah, I feel like he's in a great spot. So that's going to be kind of like my low owned GPP play.
Could be a great Eckler pivot too from GPPs, especially because Eckler's going up against Detroit, who we know has one of the slowest offenses in town. So he might not get all the snaps that you project him for. So yeah, I think Henry could be a great pivot, and at almost no ownership, you can get Henry.
Yeah, well, hoping for that.
Yeah. Moving on to wide receivers. Who are the wide receivers you're targeting this week in GPPs, Drew?
So one name that sticks out to me, and again, we want to pay attention to correlation because for example, if I'm going to take Todd Gurley in one of my lineups, I'm not going to take a Rams wide receiver in that same lineup, generally speaking. But in another GPP, because we all do multiple lineups, in another GPP, I'm probably going to have one with at least one with Cooper Kupp. I think you mentioned Jared Goff being in a good spot. I think of the three Rams wide receivers, I would want to roster Cooper Kupp in that game.
So what's your rationale for Kupp over Woods and Cooks?
I think he's going to draw the most favorable matchup from the corner perspective. I think
P.J. Williams.
Huh? I think what
P.J. Williams, I think, right?
On one of the other guys, right?
Yeah, I think Lattimore would probably beat on Cooks.
Probably, yeah, either Woods or Cooks. So I think Kupp is going to be in a good spot.
Yeah, and we saw that. Yeah,
corner for the Saints. I don't know his name, but
I think it's P.J. Williams.
P.J. Williams.
He got burned last week.
Yeah,
sure.
From the Texans game, whoever the slot corner was, he gave up some deep plays to Kenny Stills and Will Fuller. So I think Kupp is in a good spot against whoever that is. I should probably check the name next time.
For sure. Yeah, I just know both Eli Apple and P.J. Williams just kind of got completely burned last week. Every time one of the Texans receivers scored or had a huge gain, it was on Eli Apple or P.J. Williams.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think that's a good play.
Another wide receiver, I think. If I'm taking Derek Carr, I'm probably gonna stack him with Tyrell Williams. I think that works in cash or GPP. I mean, you don't have to have like 10 non-chalky plays. You can still have one or two like really chalky plays. And I think Tyrell Williams, it's like he's so cheap because he was priced in prior to Monday night's performance, and it's like looking like a virtual lock that he's gonna hit value. So I think he's worth rostering.
Yeah, I think Tyrell Williams. I mean, that price just seems so hard to fade.
Yeah, I mean, he's priced like a third or fourth wide receiver, and he's getting wide receiver one work. So it's kind of hard to avoid that. Especially after the Chiefs just gave up like so many yards to the Gardner Minshew show and Chris Conley and DJ Chark. I'm pretty sure Tyrell is going to put up some numbers next week.
Yeah, no, I mean, I preach a lot about fading the chalk in GPPs, but the thing is, Williams at 4,400, it just seems really hard to fade. He's gonna, all he needs to do is 4 catches for 40 yards, and he's already at 2x basically. It doesn't seem that hard to do.
Yeah.
And he was the actually, who was the end zone target? They targeted Waller and.
I mean, he got a touchdown too.
He did, yeah, but that was like a over the top kind of touchdown, not an end zone touch or a red zone. I don't remember actually.
It was a red zone touchdown.
It was? Okay, yeah. So Derek Carr's looking from the red zone. Yeah, Tyrell Williams is going to be a great player, whether in cash or GPPs. And usually I recommend fading the chalk, but not this time. I definitely wouldn't recommend fading Tyrell.
And I mentioned this earlier. Again, I'm not going to take this. I have my main GPP, which is like the one that I have the highest entry for, but then I'll do a couple smaller GPPs where I enter like $1 ceiling shot. I'm going to have one where I stack Tom Brady and Antonio Brown. Just cause. I just want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think that Antonio Brown's going to be very low owned if he's playing.
And if he's not playing, who would you target? Who would you stack Tom Brady with?
If he's not playing, I mean, you can go with Edelman, honestly. I mean, he's the same price pretty much, 6,900 versus 7,000. I may not stack if he's not playing. I may just kind of let it ride and just roll with Tom Brady by himself. And then my ceiling shot for the week, I think even though he was on the field for pretty much the entire game, Mecole Hardman, I think he's probably, even though people are seeing that this is going to be a game with high ownership of all the players, I think he's still going to be low owned just because recency bias, no production, no points to show for. I think the game plan is going to be towards Kelsey and Sammy Watkins, and I could see Mecole Hardman taking advantage of one of the the younger Raiders corners. So that's a player that I might be adding to my GPP.
Yeah, so you basically touched on one of my favorite GPP wide receivers for the week, and it's actually Sammy Watkins. I think he's in a great spot. I think people are going to see his 150-yard, 3-touchdown game or whatever he had in game one. See his price went up by about 3,000, kind of shy away from him. But I still think he's in a great spot against those Raiders corners. I think Watkins proved that he can handle number one wide receiver duties with Tyreek Hill out, and I think his ownership is going to still be low because of that $3,000 price increase. And he's still in a great spot. It's not like I think he's in a better spot than he was before. There's no Tyreek Hill now, and it's not like I think Garyon Conley is probably going to be out this week.
Garyon Conley will actually probably be in. So
is he really going to play? That was a scary injury.
Yeah. He was practicing the past few days.
Oh, wow.
I think that personally would alter my opinion on Sammy Watkins. Obviously, I'm a little biased about Garyon Conley as a Raider fan, but
I know the Raiders didn't get through that Broncos game clean. I know they had a few injuries on their side of the field, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Abram is now out for the season.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really covering anyone per se.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it's still the Chiefs' offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a Mahomes, Sammy Watkins, or a Mahomes Kelsey stack could do extremely well this week.
Why not Mahomes, Watkins, and Kelsey?
Yeah, you could do all three. I mean,
that'll be pretty low owned, I think. I may do that. I think the GPP plays whoever is less owned between Mecole Hardman or Sammy Watkins. I think he can play the guy who's lower owned.
Yeah.
And then my last GPP play is going to be Tyler Lockett. I liked Lockett last week, and he kind of salvaged his day with the kind of one target, one catch, one touchdown, which is basically what he's been doing the last few years. But he gave an interview afterwards saying that he was basically getting double covered the whole game. And I don't think with how well DK Metcalf performed that the Steelers can afford to double cover Lockett this time around. I think we can finally see Lockett kind of live up to that hype and potential that he was showing that a lot of people were on him for this season. So I think Lockett, and I think because of his performance last week, he's going to still be low owned, and I think we can definitely play Lockett in GPPs. His price didn't change at all, and he's still in a great spot. Yeah. What about you, Yash? Who do you have for your GPP wide receivers this week?
So my first one is I'm going with John Brown. I'm going to stack him with Josh Allen. Last week, I made the mistake of not playing any other Baltimore player except for Lamar Jackson, which wasn't a mistake playing Lamar Jackson, but I just didn't stack him with the other offensive players, especially the wide receivers or tight end or even Mark Ingram. So not going to make that mistake this time around. I feel like they're in a great spot against the Giants. They just gave up 35 points against the Cowboys or something of that. So going to roll the dice with John Brown. I think he's still reasonably priced.
John Brown, you're playing. Oh, okay, you're playing. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I was confused because you're saying you're playing. You didn't stack Lamar Jackson with.
He was a Raven last year.
I was last week. I played Lamar Jackson, but I didn't stack him with any of the other offensive players.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. That's
so you're not trying to make that same mistake with Allen.
So I'm not trying to make that same mistake by not stacking Josh Allen with.
Yeah.
Got it.
It just
for a second. I thought you were saying John Brown was on. Yeah.
Oh no. So yeah, I'm playing John Brown. I'm going to play John Brown because I'm going to stack him with Josh Allen.
There you go. Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So he's basically reasonably priced, 5,200. Definitely going to roll with him. Second wide receiver I'm aiming at is Juju. Seattle. I mean, I think a lot of people still believe that they have a great secondary. That's definitely not the Legion of Boom. They were pretty porous. They let Andy Dalton come in and throw for a career high in yards in CenturyLink Field, so including the 12th man. So, and Pittsburgh had a pretty abysmal game against the Patriots, so I feel like there's going to be a great bounce back opportunity for him. They're going to be playing at home, And I think he's just going to wreak havoc in that secondary. I'm not sure if he's going to be chalky or not, but I think he's definitely a solid play, especially at that price point. And my last wide receiver, I'm going back, Preston Williams.
Oh, God.
The dude's a beast. He's a beast. And I feel like, Albert Wilson is now injured. Albert Wilson started the game against Baltimore, but he had to leave midway. Preston Williams is going to start, and I feel like he's going to be the wide receiver too. And I'm just going to go back to it. He's only at 3,400.
Question about Preston Williams. You say he's a wide receiver too, right?
Yeah, he's going to start off as a wide receiver too for the Dolphins.
So their wide receiver 1 on that team is only priced $700 more than Preston Williams. Is Devontae Parker in play for you at all at 4,100?
What's the guy that's not being covered by Stephon Gilmore?
Honestly, you may see Gilmore on Preston Williams just because he's a bigger threat.
He deserves that much respect, huh?
He's a big body. He's like 6'4", 6'5". Really, I mean, there's a reason. The reason why he wasn't drafted was because he had a lot of like off-field issues, right? But he was actually rated as one of the top 5 wide receivers in the draft class. He just had a lot of personal off-field issues. So the guy definitely has talent, and he showed it in the first game. And I feel like he gained a lot of the trust of the Dolphins coaching staff as well as Fitzpatrick. He actually has pretty good chemistry with Fitzpatrick. I'm going back to it, 3,400. Hopefully he's going to be less than 0.1%, whatever absurd number that is, like 0.08%. Hopefully he's that low owned, and he drops a 25 bomb for me.
Well, you heard it here first on the Boardmen Don't Get Paid podcast. Preston Williams, back-to-back games as a fantasy viable play.
We going back.
Preston Williams, if you somehow hear this podcast, we would love to have you on. Because your biggest fan.
Apparently we are his biggest fans.
Yeah. I wanted to make a comment about the Tyreek Williams.
Tyrell
Williams. They fucking playing the Chiefs, all right? Like, little slip right there.
I mean, he did kind of look like Tyreek Hill the first time.
Yeah.
Against the Raiders, or against the Broncos, yeah.
I still haven't decided if I'm going to roster him or not. I don't know. He's going to be mad chalky, and I feel like it feels more like a gamble to fade him. But I have a feeling, like there's just a feeling that he may underproduce even at that price point. I think
there's definitely a chance, right? Chalk Raiders never really work out.
Yeah. I think he garnered a lot of attention from Derek Carr, and maybe the Chiefs game plan for that. And they run the ball a little bit more. Probably unlikely because they're playing the Chiefs, but you never know. And they're going to Arrowhead. That's always.
No, it's in Oakland. It's in Oakland.
It's in Oakland?
Yeah.
Oh, it is in Oakland. Okay, never mind. Well, maybe that changes my opinion a little bit. But either way, Tyrell, I don't know. He's had great starts to the season, and I know that because he was a Charger. But there's times where he just completely disappears, or he just whips at opportunities. And obviously his price point is enticing, but I think I may just roll the dice and not roster him. I'm
not mad at that.
Yeah, I think that's totally a play. You gain basically maybe 60 or 70% of the field you'll gain 30% of the field if you do that. I think Tyrell might reach up to 30% ownership this week in GPP, so I can see that play from that perspective.
Yeah.
Moving on to tight ends. Drew, who's on your radar this week for GPPs?
For tight, I think again, chalky play if you're stacking Derek Carr, Darren Waller. I mean, it's probably not going to be my most owned play, but I think he's going to be a common pick. I'm actually going to go with Jared Cook. I think he's going to be extremely low owned. I think that he's going to get a lot of targets this week, actually. So I'm kind of a gut call here. I'm going to take Jared Cook in that high-scoring game.
Yeah. Is he your only tight end on your radar this week in GPPs?
That's probably going to be my main play. I think I'll have a little bit of Darren Waller. I may take a ceiling shot at Noah Fant, actually.
Against the Bears?
Yeah, I think he's going to be on the field for most of that game. He had a lot of snaps against the Raiders, and I know he didn't put up the numbers, but I think he's going to get some target share because the Bears secondary defending receivers is pretty solid. Again, my main pick this week is probably going to be Jared Cook, and then I think I'm probably going to have some Kelsey just because I know he always kills my team. I'll have that sprinkled in. So Jared Cook, a little bit of Kelsey, a little bit of Waller, and maybe a ceiling shot at Noah Fant in a cheap lineup.
Yeah, for me in my tight ends this week, I feel like I just kind of have to mention TJ Hawkinson at 3K. I don't know if I'm going to go that route, but at 3K, he's so cheap for what you project his ceiling for. He just went off for 100 yards and a touchdown against the Cardinals. But I think that was also probably the Bears or the Lions' best game of the year. Like, I don't think they're going to get a better game environment than that. So 3K is really cheap, and you could totally play Hawkinson.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'm going that route. I want to see how the ownership pans out for him. And I think you mentioned both Kelsey and Waller. They're both probably going to be projected for pretty high ownership and much deserved, especially after, I think, first Kelsey playing against the Raiders, who is historically bad against tight ends. And
yeah, it's him in particular, yes.
Yeah, and Waller, who, it's a great way to kind of run back that Derek Carr / Chief stack.
Yeah.
For me personally, I know it's not the best game environment, but I'm going back to Evan Ingram against the Bills. I think the Giants need some way of producing and scoring, and they showed last week that when the run wasn't there, Evan Ingram was the way to go for them to move the chains and get touchdowns. And I think he's still going to garner a huge target share from Eli Manning. And at only 5,800, I think it's still a huge discount to what I think Ingram's price will be later on this season. So I kind of want to get in on Ingram while he's still cheap. Then my other tight end that I'm targeting in GPPs is one that garnered a lot of hype in the offseason in Vance McDonald, who kind of disappointed in week 1 against the Patriots. Everybody, and it was weird because I saw so many people already dropping Vance McDonald, and I'm like, he's still gonna garner that target share with AB gone and Jesse James gone from the Steelers.
Yeah.
And last week the Seahawks defense gave up 9 receptions to CJ Uzoma and Tyler Eifert combined, which were the 2 Bengals tight ends. So I can still see McDonald kind of matching value, especially because at depreciated ownership, especially because he disappointed last week. And at only 3,900, it's worth a dart throw in my opinion.
Is a Roethlisberger / Juju / McDonald stack in consideration for you?
I don't know. I don't really know if I want to play both Juju and McDonald. I think Juju's price is kind of too high. The reason we can play the Raiders stack is because both Waller and Tyrell, their prices combined are 7,700.
It's the same as Juju.
Basically. Juju's basically 7,700 by himself. So I'd rather just play one of the two.
Fair.
Yeah. What about you, Yash? Who's on your radar for tight ends this week?
So tight ends, I definitely have Kelsey.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be a very chalky tight end play this week. He lit them up last season in Oakland. I think he went for something ridiculous, like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Let's not talk about that.
You can't beat that. That's definitely a great play. My second tight end is going to be Mark Andrews. They're playing Arizona, and Arizona got shredded by Hawkinson last week on the Lions. And so Mark Andrews actually, he's a second-year tight end from Baltimore. he had a great game against Miami, caught all 8 targets, went for 100 yards and a touchdown. And last season, he actually led all rookie tight ends in receiving yards. And he was like 3rd in receptions or touchdowns. I don't know, but he definitely showcased his talent. And so I think he's in a great position to once again put up some good numbers. And he's only at 3,800. That's only $400 more than Preston Williams. So definitely the value is there.
So the barometer for value is how they're priced in relation to Preston Williams. Is that
of course
correct understanding there?
Preston Williams should be at least 7,400. Let's just say that, all right?
You heard it here first, guys. So my question with Mark Andrews is, a lot of his production last week came in garbage time, and I was wondering if that might sway you off, knowing that they still the Ravens still run like 3 different tight ends out there, and at 3,800, is he a better option than someone like Hawkinson or Waller, or would you rather pivot somewhere else?
I feel like Hawkinson he's in a trap right now. They're playing the Chargers, and the Chargers shut down the Colts tight ends last game. And the Colts actually have pretty good tight ends. Andrews he's playing against a defense where he should thrive against. I'm just looking at it that way. And I think a lot of people are going to be gravitating towards Hawkinson just because he's $800 cheaper. Mm-hmm. And he just had that big game, and he seems like he's one of Stafford's favorite targets. But just like with Tyrell Williams, I'm going to pull the fade on him, and I'm going to go with someone like Mark Andrews. I think, well, I guess you could consider garbage time like the beginning of the second half again in that Baltimore-Miami game. But that's where, he did most of his damage. But I think he's going to be a favorite target, a reliable target of Lamar Jackson. He's a big body. He's got safe hands. They do have 3 tight ends. They have Hurst. I think that's the second one. But I think, I see Andrews. He's going to be one of the main targets. He actually may be even Lamar Jackson's number 1 target as the season goes on.
So what I'm hearing from you is you're fading Hawkinson this week?
Yeah.
I'm also probably fading Hawkinson this week. Drew, do we have a consensus on the Hawkinson fade this week for the Boardmen don't get paid?
You have the consensus on the
All right. We have a Hawkinson fade this week. That's a bold call coming from us. So when he puts up 28 fantasy points, just ignore the fact that we said that.
We'll edit that out the next week.
Perfect. On to defense. GPP defenses. Any guys you like this week?
Oh, you already know who I'm taking. I spent 41 fab dollars on this, so I'm taking the Patriots.
So you spent $41 on that. That means in DraftKings money, you probably would have rostered the Patriots defense for like 8,000.
Yes, they're gonna score like 25 points this week, so take them. I think that's gonna be a really common chalky play, and I'm completely fine with that. If you don't want to go there, I think you can take the Broncos against the Bears, against Trubisky at home. I think that's a potentially juicy matchup. And if you want to go with another team, I think you could go back to the 49ers also. I think their pass rush looked really good last week, and that could be.
Was it their pass rush, or we saw that game tonight. That I think it's just Jameis Winston holding on to the ball for way too long.
It's a combination of both those things, but I think the addition of Nick Bosa and is it D Ford on that defensive line?
Yeah.
They're looking like they got some ballers on that side of the field now. Obviously, the pick sixes probably won't be there, but I think there's a chance for some turnovers.
Yeah, for me, my defense, I'm not talking about too many defenses because it's still kind of a crapshoot. But in GPPs, I'm probably going to target the Jaguars this week against Houston. Jaguars have a great defense. I think they were kind of exposed last week a little bit, not because their defense was bad, but because they're playing against Patrick Mahomes. And so people might not want to go back to the Jaguars, seeing as how they're playing against a good offensive team in the Texans, and you might see those -4 points that they put up last week as a deterrent to picking them. But the thing with Houston is that their O-line is still really bad, even though the Texans put up 28 points on the Saints. Deshaun Watson also got sacked 6 times. And if they keep up that pressure, I think, Jacksonville still might give up points to Houston. But interceptions, fumbles, sacks, I think they're still well in play. Pick 6 likely too. Who knows? With A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey, pick 6s are always in play for Jacksonville. So I like Jacksonville as a contrarian GPP defense.
I like it. And that kind of goes along with the same line of thinking you were saying with your Duke Johnson play, because you think Deshaun's going to have to get rid of the ball really quick.
Yep. And they're only 2,400, which is bargain bin price right now for Jacksonville. You're not going to get them this cheap at all year.
Fair. I like it. What about you, Yash? Any defense that stands out to you?
When I was building my roster, I sort of just filled it out. I took the Packers. I think a lot of people don't realize that they've invested a lot in their defense the last couple of years. As you can see, they went into Chicago, Soldier Field, and Trubisky is Trubisky, but the Packers defense was still impressive. I think they got at least 5 sacks on him. I think, this is going to be Minnesota's first. Minnesota is going to have trouble. And maybe Cousins is going to finally have to start throwing the ball a little bit more. I think Packers is. Like I said, I think they fill out my roster, and the Packers were the best option at the time. So I'm gonna roll with them. They did well for me last week. So
fair.
Yeah.
Anything else?
All right. Let's. I think that's. Anybody else have anything else they want to add for DFS this week?
I think that's it for me. Do you guys have a ceiling shot that you want to talk about, or no?
I think we kind of talked about our ceiling plays. I think we can move on to the gambling portion of this podcast now.
Good to me.
Yeah. So last week in gambling, we combined went solid 2-1 with our plays, and hopefully we can provide you guys with some good plays against this week. And Drew, do you want to start with who your pick of the week is for the spread?
Sure. I am going to take the Dallas Cowboys this week as a 5.5 point favorite. I think they will blow out the Redskins. I think that's going to be a 2-touchdown victory for them. And I know they're on the road, and Zeke is still a little rusty, but I think it's going to be a blowout. Sticking with boring picks like last week. Patriots, Cowboys.
Yash, what about you? Who's your pick for the week?
I think my pick is going to be the over/under for Seattle-Pittsburgh.
So the over or the under?
Over.
Yash never takes unders, full disclosure. He never bets the under. So just assume over every time.
Yeah. I think the over for Seattle-Pittsburgh.
So you actually took a pick that I was kind of going to go against. I actually really like the Redskins this week. But because you took the Cowboys, I'm going to pivot to my second favorite pick of the week, which is going to be the Denver Broncos at +2.5 against, it depends. I would say +2.5. I see +2.5, +3 at places, but we'll stick with 2.5. Yeah, so we'll stick with +2.5 against Chicago, I think. Chicago traveling to Denver. I know Vic Fangio's defense did not look very good in that first game against Oakland, but I'm pretty sure he knows how to prep against the Bears offense. And I'm pretty sure he'll know how to prep against the Bears defense too. And especially because, Denver was -2.5 against the Raiders, or -2. I don't remember what the exact number was at the end, but for them to only be 2-point underdogs, you're kind of assuming that the Raiders and the Broncos, or Raiders and the Bears are only 4.5 points apart if they played each other. That seems a little bit presumptuous. So this game has all the feelings of a trap game because people think that Chicago's really good, but we saw how bad they were game one against the Packers, and I think Denver will be ready.
Denver's really good at home in the beginning of the season too.
Yeah, I think they saw some stat. They were 18-0 at home for the last 3 years in the first game at home. I think I don't know what the stat was. It was some ridiculous Denver at home stat. But yeah,
that altitude is a real advantage.
Yeah, and I think Denver should be favorites here, especially because their head coach should know all about Chicago's offense and defense inside out. So that's my pick for the week. It's Denver Broncos at 2.5.
I like it.
Plus 2.5. Yeah, I think we've covered everything.
Yash is the over?
Yash has the over on the Seattle and Seahawks. I'm giving him 46.5.
Did you say the Seattle and the Seahawks?
Seattle and Steelers.
Pull the Yash.
Oh, shit.
Seahawks and Steelers.
Steelers and Seahawks. You're rubbing off on me, man. Sorry.
I know. Plus, what was that, 46.5?
I don't see the over-under where I'm looking right now.
OddsShark has it at 47, so...
You want that half a point, or you want to take 47?
I'll take the half point.
All right, we'll give you 46.5 because I see that on Pinnacle.
Nice.
All right, I think that wraps it up for this week. Any last thoughts, anybody?
Nope. Hopefully, one of us hits it big and wins the GPP. That'd be the goal. But it's been fun. I think we're in for a good season. Week 1 was solid. I think there's room for more improvement, and we'll continue to do that as time goes on.
Yeah, and hopefully we can come back on Tuesday or Wednesday with some good news.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. It was another good episode. Thank you guys for joining. We will see you next time. Take care.
Peace.